本当？見えないでしょ？どこにいるのかな？見えないよ。What's good, Internet? It's Friday, August 20th, and you're listening to Waypoint Radio, episode 338. I'm your host, Austin Walker. Joining me today, Rob Zachney.
Good morning.
Patrick Klepek.
I'm here. It's me, and also a 5-month-old is on the other side of the room. She's staring at the ceiling of her carrier. She was trying to suck her thumb, but she's being chill. So right. If there's a moment on the podcast where Austin and Rob are like, Patrick, we can't hear you, it's because I've muted my mic and then forgot to unmute it. So
good. Got
that
it.
happened
Perfect.
Before the pod, which is I feel like just a sign of the future.
Yep.
As Confucius says, study the past if you would define the future.
Wow, Confucius do be saying that. Also joining us, you heard the laughter of Ricardo Contreras.
Hi. You ever get to a point where coffee doesn't do anything anymore?
You just drink more
Yeah,
coffee.
it's around 4 p.m. and then I drink a Diet Coke instead.
Oh, okay.
But
a mini one.
What about
We have
the
mini
morning?
ones.
You ever have that happen in the morning when you get up and you're like, coffee is what
That's
I usually
a bad
do?
sign.
Yeah, no, it was... I just stopped
are
playing
you all right?
Valorant at 1:30 in the morning.
Ah, well, there's your problem right there.
Gets me all
There you
jittery.
go.
I can't
That
go to
keeps
sleep.
you out.
Let me tell you the best way to start the day.
Huh.
Just go downstairs, you throw on your boots, you put on your vest, and you take your dog for a long walk. And it's just that easy. All your dog stuff already preloaded in that vest, and you just walk the dog. It gets you right out the door. You have time for coffee? No. But what you do have is 50-degree late summer morning air
Forgot that
to
Rob
walk around
has a
in.
tactical vest for his dog stuff.
It's so fucking funny. I love it.
Let me
so
tell you,
much.
this morning I opened up one of the magazine pouches, and the doggy bag holder was empty. So I had to open up the other magazine pouch and basically slide in a fresh clip of turd bags to go with my walk.
Fuck.
It was like a Michael Mann film, really.
I see. Yeah. Like
I was like Val Kilmer ducking behind that car and just like doing a picture perfect magazine replacement on that AR.
Go ahead,
Like,
Patrick. Let's stay on this vest.
Yes, I don't want to say it now. If the joke's not good enough, like to stop and like the podcast and then utter it, I refuse to acknowledge.
Now we have to evaluate if that's true. Or not.
I would say it's like the Control Ultimate Edition of Vest, which is just going to be a pivot point.
There we are. We're in it. Woo, Patrick. Segue.
Good segue.
Okay. Poo bags, vests, Control.
Control. What about it?
It controls your dog. And
You have to finish the segue. You have to segue to the thing.
I thought the vest
Oh,
were
you usually do the segues. All right, so
I'm giving you the space.
Finally, thank you. 4 years in, get that seg under my belt. Put that on my
on your
time sheet.
resume.
What's my project code for the
the segue timesheet? God.
This morning, 505 Games seemed maybe at gunpoint to put out a blog from Remedy that was trying to explain why Control, which is a game that has its second and I think final major DLC coming out in like a week, next week. That's the crossover with Alan Wake, but is getting an Ultimate Edition later this year that will be a upgraded version for the PS5 and Xbox Series X. That upgrade path is not like a patch that just comes with people who have bought the game previously. There's no upgrade path. It's not for the season pass holders. It's basically just either buy this $60 game for the upgraded next-gen-ness of Control or don't get it at all. I mean, it's backwards compatible, but and there was a big uproar over that because Microsoft's made a big stink about their smart delivery system of just you buy the game and you get the upgrade. And this is a game that sort of kind of went, not every game is getting that, but Control is like, we are doing an upgrade. You're just going to pay for it. And that rubbed people a lot of the wrong way. Maybe, as we pointed out in the last podcast, not entirely for the right reasons, because it probably had more to do with 505 than it was with Remedy like looking for another bag of money because that game didn't, by all accounts, didn't have many bags of money. And then this blog seeks to clarify it by just making things more muddled. It's worth reading for the corporate speak, but they try to walk through the different scenarios of like, well,
Is the corporate speak worth it?
No. Worth your time reading. Yeah. No, go ahead. What is it?
Well,
what does it say,
it's just to watch a tortured explanation. Like, I'm not saying it's worth it in the sense like you'll get anything out of it, but I mean, like, do you want to see like a tortured explanation of the summation being the different
you
scenarios
want to
they thought
rubberneck
through.
this blog post, basically.
Yeah. And they basically said we couldn't satisfy everyone, so we decided the best thing to do was to satisfy absolutely no one. I mean, ultimately, it seems like they didn't plan for next gen, and what they've built is a separate SKU. The Ultimate Edition is not just a patch for Control. They built a different game, and it's not as easy to just drop that as a patch. I'm not going to pretend that's just a wave a wand and like that goes to the original game. And so it just seems like 505, the way they planned the next gen transition for Control, or decided, however their business plan for this was, have put them in a position where they can't offer something easy, and instead have just like, I don't know, like going into the Alan Wake DLC, I think people were feeling pretty fucking good about Remedy, and then this is just like an unnecessary step in the dog shit because you forgot to fill the clip in the vest and you ran out of the bags to clean up the dog turds.
You're going back to the other. It's just
it's weird.
I'm with you. And go ahead, Rob, did you have something? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, I think here's where I will defend 505. Some of this is being made more awkward because Microsoft especially has made a big selling point of like smart delivery, automatic upgrades for all your games as
it
part
just
of
happens.
them. Yeah, it's part of them selling their system. And a lot of the games they're making that promise about are games that they own, right? That are their properties, or they are games produced by major publishers who I assume can just eat the costs of doing what is effectively a port, and just not care about it because it's so much cheaper than any of the annoying publicity, and making it easy for people to feel like, hey, if you buy this on any platform, we don't care where you buy it, just buy the fucking game. And when you get the new hardware, it'll roll over automatically. But it isn't. My assumption is this next generation Switch, it's not like you've put a new video card in your PC and it's just like now just create the nicer looking control, right? They are moving to different systems with different architecture, and that's not a straightforward upgrade from the development standpoint would be my assumption. Otherwise you would just roll over editions.
This is the thing that I'm curious about, because one of the notes in the Control Ultimate Edition blog post here, the Control Ultimate Edition blog post here is that if you do play your original base game through backwards compatibility on your from your PS4 or your Xbox One, you'll still be able to play 100% of your game and enjoy an enhanced experience through backwards compatibility, because we know that there is on both consoles some sort of enhanced backwards compatibility mode. There is like, oh, hey, listen, there will be better resolution or better frame rate or whatever it's going to look like. I'm very curious what that just looks like for the Xbox One / Xbox One X version of Control compared to
the base PS4 version. Can't be any like those base level Xbox and PS4 versions sounded like they were borderline unplayable.
Totally.
What
I expected this FAQ to give me would be, okay, but what's the difference going to be? And they'd be like ray tracing, or like, here's the thing that
look at all the work we've done that is beyond just.
Yeah.
Well, I think part of it's undone by the fact that to make that demonstration would be like, look at this not great looking version of the game, and then here's what we've done, and it's also undercut by essentially the Ultimate Edition. Whatever meaningful upgrades they're doing to the console version is just catching up to what the PC version can already do. Like when I was asking Rob, I was like, hey, I'm requesting codes for the Alan Wake expansion. I thought you were playing on Xbox. Then I don't know, maybe you were on PC. I can't remember what you were doing. I think I took my break when that happened. He's like, oh no, got that new video card, played through the whole goddamn thing again on PC. Because it's got all the RTX stuff, and I assume that'll be, the lighting will be like one of the primary upgrades on the console.
And I'll tell you, it's one of those quintessential. Here's the weird thing: I played it on One X, so I assume I played like what a nice backwards compatibility version would look like, right? Or maybe even something not quite as good as their enhanced backwards compatibility. And it was fun. It was great, right? Like, it looked really, really good. It is a good looking game. On PC, yes, it begins to approach like absurd levels of lighting and texture detail. But it is kind of your quintessential, like, you really need to, like, you'll be staring at really similar images really intensely, trying to see, like, okay, what improved? And my suspicion is the Ultimate Edition will leave you in a similar place where, like, in some shots, you'll be like, damn, that scene looks like so much better lit than my backwards compatible
the red
version.
lighting, right? The red lighting is going to look amazing.
I have some sympathy because my suspicion is it's a pain in the ass to be developing this enhanced edition for what will be pretty marginal gains.
Yeah, totally.
And people are getting pissed because they're like, I should get those upgrades. And maybe, but the upgrades are also going to be really minimal. Like, if you
very curious. I'm super curious what the turnaround they expected was, because the other thing about this FAQ is that it reads as if they were always writing a check that they thought they weren't going to have to cash for a little bit longer. It reads like, listen, we thought about this a long time ago. What they actually say is, we spent several months exploring all of our launch options. No decision was taken lightly. Every avenue we pursued, there was some form of blocker, and those blockers meant that at least one group of players ended up being left out of the upgrade for various reasons. I'm assuming that's like partner deals in terms of like we could do it just on Xbox or just on PS
or there
or whatever.
I don't know the exact details, so I don't want to like get tripped up on exactly the mechanisms. But like there have been other games that are dealing with like similar situations like this that have found ways of like changing the digital code that is assigned to players that have purchased it digitally, so like they can do some carryover. So like, or is there a world where they made an announcement and they said, as of today, we're no longer, selling the season. Season pass, or anyone that bought a season pass before a certain date, can like apply to like. Imagine a world where, and this is a pain in the ass, but like, I'm just trying to imagine different scenarios where they find some way to get, because they probably crunch the numbers and know not that many people are actually going to engage with it relative to the amount of people that are upset over it. Because it's always about what the potential of what you could do, not what you are actually going to do. Not to say people wouldn't play Control on their PS5, but it seems more along the lines of when you buy a new video card, what's everyone's favorite thing to do is like load up a game you've seen before, see it look nice and shiny and new, and there would be appeal there in Control relative to like there are just millions out there waiting to play Control again, but with RTX
the audience
on their
they're
PS5.
actually trying to look for here is, hey, do you remember that podcast we did a couple weeks ago where I was like, all right, so I have my Caesar salad and I come back to the Xbox Series X. What am I playing on it? They want the version of me who's never touched Control before going, I guess there's this game Control. I heard good things about that last generation. That's who they're looking for, right? Is like people who buy a new console and need something to play on it. That's
especially during a the launch lineup is going to be pretty sparse for both platforms. I was talking to someone fairly recently, pretty keyed in on some of the PS5 stuff, and was like, yeah, on fire, just everything on fire, which is not an indictment of Sony
Allegedly.
or it's really just, that's just how launches go. It's always like this. And so, when we just saw Deathloop, a game that was just shown off, is like, this is coming to PS5 this year. And I was like, actually, what about next summer? A couple of weeks later, which just goes to show how much things are changing, and the
just
pace
in
that
time
they're
for
changing.
E3 maybe next year.
Yeah. Oh,
You know.
okay. Well, just for time for the women gamers to rise up.
Oh
and
my
explain.
fucking god! We cannot get into
Nope,
Twitter
we can't do it.
discourse. We can't.
We can't do it.
There's some other news this week that we should just hit out the gate.
Sure.
I love that we had what I think was a really nuanced and fair debate about Epic and Apple, and then Apple immediately made it so that just made the worst decision they could make in terms of both outcome and optics. What's up, Rob?
Outcome for them.
It's a bold decision. Like this, it was a statement-making decision.
It truly was.
Yeah, so the
ahead,
change
Rob.
that happened after our podcast on Monday was that Apple announced that they were, I guess as of this recording, it'll be a little over a week from now. I believe that the 28th of August is what Apple had reportedly told Epic, was that in response to Epic's, provocations, basically, that they were going to eliminate sort of like the developer certificates and I guess certificates is the wrong word, because I think if they eliminated their developer certificates, it would actually like break Fortnite
retroactively
existing device, which they can do. They have I think they've done it like once with a piece of almost like malware, but it's something that Apple like rarely does, even for apps that they ban or take down from the App Store. But Epic's no longer going to be able to update Fortnite, publish apps on the App Store, and they'll be cut off from essentially delivering updated tools to Unreal Engine for iOS and the Mac. And now, granted, in the grand scheme of things, the amount of developers who use Unreal Engine on iOS and the Mac are pretty small relative to where that stuff is used elsewhere. But in terms of escalation on Apple's part, it is essentially them gunning for pre-Fortnite was the primary business model of Epic Games as a result of a decision that Epic made regarding their new business model, which is Fortnite, alongside their engine technology. And the update to that, we didn't publish a blog on this because it just didn't seem notable enough to write down, but is worth mentioning here. Apple essentially put out a statement that is what they've done with other developers who have sort of like blatantly infringed in the past, which is like, look, let's change your app back, and this all
This can all be over.
All goes away. Right.
You can stop hitting yourself anytime.
You won't believe how much this didn't happen.
And so that's where we stand right now. Epic has not indicated that they are going to change their policy. Apple has, at this point, I do not expect Apple to offer any sort of like special deal. Like they're not going to do so at gunpoint. And once they got poked in the eye, it's just not, if that ever was a possibility, it's not a possibility anymore. And I think they are now looking to sort of like put Epic in their place over this current situation. And then they're happy this now $2 trillion company, as was announced, yesterday or the day before, in which they've made an entire $1 trillion additional evaluation on the company during the pandemic, which I get it. Everyone's at home buying computers, buying phones. I get it. But boy, that's completely fucked.
It's
given
fucked.
Everything else going on. This is a situation where I think they're happy to let the legal process and the regulatory process play or not play out. And, because the cards are technically in Apple's favor there in terms of history and precedent. And that's like a longer term play than it is right now dealing with giving Epic a deal and then potentially having a lot of other developers say, oh yeah, me too.
Right.
It's an interesting, so the thing that interests me here is that by going after the developer account and effectively saying that Unreal on Mac devices would cease working, it does kind of seem like Apple's position is, we like the courts we got. We think we would win across the board on all these counts. And this would pretty much lock in. Now it would be legally sanctioned. Their practices with the App Store would now be specifically like blessed by the courts and even harder to challenge down the road, right? Because now you'd have like explicit precedent for the way a marketplace like the App Store works. But it does also kind of feel that by sort of opening a second front at the developer account and targeting a different line of business for Epic, it also does seem like Apple may like the courts they've got, but also you are now playing, it seems like you would be legally playing with higher stakes right? Where now we've expanded the scope of this dispute beyond payments within the Apple Store to broader access to Apple platforms and the way Apple controls those platforms. And so it's just an interesting move, because I think as a pure dispute over the payment system within the App Store, it was going to hinge on some obscure arguments about what is the nature of the fee that Apple charges via the App Store. By expanding it to developer accounts, though, it does kind of seem now like you're inviting a broader legal scrutiny of your business practices. Again, it feels like they're very confident that this would go their way based on the precedents that exist. On the other hand, what if it doesn't? Right? It is one of those things where you picked a bigger fight.
To one degree, though, I wonder if they're ready to lose that part of the fight. The part of the fight that says you can't block people from using Unreal Engine who have no relation to Epic outside of their licensing of the Unreal Engine. I wonder if they're like, yeah, of course, that might not hold up. But for this time period, we're showing what we can throw around with our weight, and how this is maybe not what you think of as a pro developer, crusade that you're launching against us and blah blah blah. Not that I buy that, but that is some of the internal thinking, presumably. We'll see. I mean, I'm so curious about what the rate at which any of this resolves is. In terms of how quickly any of these lawsuits are heard, and how long and how interesting any of the findings will be around digging into these companies and their relationship. So we'll see. I don't know. Anything else?
Well, you know what? That sounds like a lot of fun work for. I had shared this tweet privately to Austin and Rob. I wrote an article yesterday about Manifold Garden, the puzzle game. In which I asked if the designer was any good at puzzle games. They're like, no, I built a puzzle game because I'm bad at them, and I wanted to make a puzzle game that I could play. And so then I wrote a follow-up tweet that was like, game designers, please out yourself if you are bad at the games that you make or the genre that you make them in, which is a lot of people, it turns out. And actually, a bunch of designers then pointed out, like, actually, they think that's kind of intrinsic to understanding a genre is not being particularly good at it, because you kind of work yourself from the outside in. Maybe not universal, but it's interesting. And then one of the people that responded was like, oh, next week is my first week at Epic Games as their internal senior counsel, and I have not played a round of Fortnite. And I was like, oh,
I love it.
Well, that's a good, have
what
fun.
A time.
What a time to join Epic Games. And they followed up this morning and said they played 3 matches. So good for them. Maybe someone at Epic was like, hey, go play a round of Fortnite, please.
You should play Fortnite a little bit. Maybe. I love it. I love it so much. The other big thing that happened this week was the Nintendo Indie World. I guess they're not directs technically, but they're like, live streams that show off some indie games that are coming out to Nintendo Switch. And in this case,
I guess direct implies it's going to be like Nintendo first party will play some sort of significant role.
Exactly. Whereas this is not. This is all their indie partner stuff. I love these streams. I think this stream specifically, like the format.
This was a good one. There've been good ones, and then this might be the best one they've done.
I don't even necessarily. I'm not like bowled away by the games themselves. Like some of these games are not for me, but the format was so enjoyable for me to watch, because the setup basically was you got your like 60 to 90 second trailer, I guess 30 to 90 second trailer that was just like gameplay and music and vibe and traditional whatever. Then you got like your minute with a developer who is like, hey, my name is this. This is my company, or this is the company I'm with. Here's what made us want to make a game like this. Here's the vibe. And then you got another minute with the like hosts of the Nintendo Indie World being like, here are the verbs of this game. Here are the things you'll do in this game. Here's gameplay that I'm going to describe that lets you know what the game you just saw is.
And contrasted to all of the next-gen presentations we've seen so far, which is just the complete opposite of that, is like, here is a tone piece.
Yeah, exactly. And I like a tone piece.
Is it an engine? Well, what's your definition of in engine?
Right.
And no, absent it being a sequel where you could make some presumptions, like no understanding of how it's going to play or work or when it's coming out. Whereas like this indies thing was like, you know what? Fuck release dates. Like, just like load up that eShop now.
Yeah, a lot of this
go
is
get it.
Yeah, here
There were
today.
four,
here today,
four or
here
five,
today.
6 games that all came out at the
Well, and it's funny because
the same time.
I think we'd heard privately that like 2 things are going to come out that are just out. They're just going to drop right away. And then I was like, no, there's like 6 things. That's pretty incredible.
Well, yeah, like I had talked to someone that was like, oh yeah, this Nintendo indie thing is happening. And I've heard a couple of games they call Shadow Drop, which is, where it goes live as soon as the presentation is up. And then I was like, oh, it's probably just like some developers talk to some developers and it's like, yo, where are we shadow dropping? And then it turns out like there's just a lot more of those, which is like it works on me, even for games that I am not all that interested in. I'm like, that's just exciting. Like that game's out right now.
That game's out right now. So yeah, some stuff that got shown off included Raji, which is a game about Hindu mythology developed by an Indian studio, which looks
I just
dope.
downloaded that. I haven't had a chance to check it out yet.
I hear
but
it's pretty
I'm
good. I
looking
haven't gotten a chance to check it out
It's
yet.
had some performance issues on Switch, which not shocking, but it's coming to PC and PS4 sometime later this year. But I've heard it's like kind of a Prince of Persia-esque.
Yeah. It looks cool. A Short Hike, a game that you got into some hot water about because of your headline.
Fuck off. Yeah, because I liked it too much. That is a game. Like there are lots of games for more distance you get from it, you go, shit. Like I didn't like that nearly as much as I thought I did. Mm-hmm. Whereas A Short Hike is like exponentially the other direction.
Okay.
Like,
I was like, damn, why would you weigh in on this so harshly?
No. I think back to A Short Hike, and it's one of those where it's like, sometimes it'd be funny. I've thought about doing this feature where it's like, I wish I could like rewrite my game of the year list from the year before. It's like, I've sat with this list for a year. Here's how I actually feel about it. And you only work with the 10 games you have. And it's just like, this is how these games have sat with me, 12
slide
months.
Some stuff around.
Yeah. I just think like an interesting exercise because I often find that I have and like A Short Hike would just like.
That's a good, let me tell you, that's a good end of decade project.
End of decade.
Not that 2020 is technically the end of a decade if you count it that way. That's how people count it sometimes. Anyway, Manifold Gardens, the game that you just mentioned, the developer having not been a great puzzle game player, also out today or yesterday on Switch, or 2 days ago on Switch, I guess, by the time you hear this.
Yeah, right? And everything else, too. It came out on PC and Apple Arcade, and now it's on everything, including Switch. Yeah,
another Apple Arcade game that I liked and talked about on this podcast a little while ago, Takeshi and Hiroshi. An excellent little like RPG where you're designing you're designing what the enemy fights
your little brothers,
your little brother. Yeah,
right?
you have a little brother. You're a big brother. You have a laptop. You're making a game. Your little brother's like, I want to play your game. And you're like, it is not ready to play. But I guess what I can do is just like put you in it and then build out the fights as you go through it. And there's kind of a balance between making the fights difficult, but not so difficult that he loses, but not so easy that they're boring. And that's really fun. I'm glad that that's getting a wider release because like, I think a lot of stuff that's going to Apple Arcade right now is maybe not finding the audience that they deserve. So, whatever. A game called Evergate, which I don't remember what this is. What was Evergate?
I don't know. It was a platformer.
It's just a very cute-looking platformer. Also came out, and then I saved the one that I've actually put a lot of time into for last year. Spiritfarer came out this week. Also, Spiritfarer I think first debuted last year at like Nintendo E3 event. That seems right, and that is a. God, how to even describe it? It's like a 2D side-scrolling farming and management game. It has a real sharp look, very hand animated. All of the movement has a lot of frames of animation to communicate a lot of fluidity and a lot of like. There's a lot of like whimsy in the way it moves. Like I think this game I almost certainly showed up in the Wholesome Direct a few months ago. But also it's just a very whimsical game, which I think is a different thing than Wholesome. And it's interesting saying that because it's a game about ushering people to their final obliteration and death. Or I guess whatever comes next.
Whimsy is not the word I would use. I would use like optimistic melancholy. I don't know. Like, because there's an end. I don't know.
I think it moves whimsically is what I'm saying. I think the animation and the visual design is all whimsical in the face of what it's about, so you're playing a character named Stella who has taken over the role of Sharon. Am I pronouncing that right? Okay, good. Thank God. I like thought about it real hard. I was like, wait, how is this pronounced? Who of course ushers people, through across the river Styx. I guess in this case it's a sea more than a river. And
an ocean, not a lake.
Finally, the Alan Wake crossover we've always wanted: Spiritfarer and Alan Wake. You are basically exploring this ocean, going from island to island, meeting people who are in this sort of like limbo-like afterlife, in between states, with some unresolved, feelings about their mortal lives. Some of them are people you know in a way that's like, is something happening here that I don't understand? Was there some sort of terrible car wreck with me and all of the people I knew in it? You don't really get a lot about yourself out the gate. You kind of figure out more about yourself as you meet people. And so you're exploring by piloting this boat around this ocean area, going to these different islands, and as you're doing that, you're gaining resources. Some of which come from stuff that you grow on your ship. Stuff like if you're growing tea leaves, and then you can take those tea leaves and turn them into hot tea, or you can, which I didn't mean. There's no gossip mini game in this game. It's not being metaphorical.
Excellent tea time.
Yeah, exactly. There's also not that. You do give tea. You do give gifts to people for sure. And as you travel, what you do is you kind of get residents to come onto your ship and work through their shit until they're ready to move on and go through like the Great Gate of Oblivion or whatever the hell it's called. There's like some really interesting visual design stuff around the characters. Everyone in the world when you first meet them is this kind of just robed figure who they're all like different sizes and shapes, but they don't have any individual personality or individual like character design until you get them to open up a little bit and come back to your ship about whatever they're dealing with. At which point they become anthropomorphic animals, of course. So I guess this one person's a mushroom person. So I guess that I haven't met that person yet. They're in the trailer though. And so it's a very weird game design. It's not weird in the sense that it's bad, but it's weird in the sense that what I expected was something that felt a little bit more like Harvest Moon or Stardew Valley, that I would wake up in the game, do my chores, then and spend the rest of the day doing like adventure stuff. But everything is just kind of low-key happening all the time. You have a garden and a farm, or early on you have a garden and a farm, and eventually you start adding more and more kind of workstations to your ship, which you place in a sort of inventory Tetris type thing, except instead of having an inventory, you also have an inventory, but instead of this thing being just an inventory, it's buildings with weird shapes. So it's like, oh, the forge is this shape, and so you got to fit that in, and then try to fit someone's house in over here, and then fit the kitchen in, and maybe you want two kitchens, so you can cook two things at once, or two stacks of things at once. And all along the way, you're getting these requests from people that are like, hey, can we go to this island because I heard I had a loved one who was there? Or, oh, can we go visit my old house? Or, hey, can you build me a medicine cabinet out of crystals? I really need a crystal medicine cabinet. I think that I'll be honest, I think the first 3 hours I spent with this game, maybe even 4 hours, I was kind of having a downer of a time with it. I never caught the right rhythm with the game. I always just felt like there was always something to be working on, and none of it was really clicking with me. Now that I'm like 6 or 7 hours in, there's enough happening at all times that I feel engaged. There's always something for me to be doing. I'm trying to turn wood into coal so that I can then take the coal and bring it up and turn iron ore into iron ingot so that I can go upgrade this building. Or I'm trying to get, and meanwhile my boat is going across this big world map to get from point A to point B. I'm going to go land on the giant turtle because I have some trees growing on the giant turtle that I need to get the wood from. And that stuff has started scratching an itch for me in a way that it hadn't for those first like 4, maybe even 5 hours. It's really only been the last couple of hours of play that things started going. What I can't know if it works or not yet is the story stuff, because through 7 hours of play, something like that, I haven't delivered anyone to like the afterworld yet. Everyone is still just kind of like working through their shit. And the stories of them working through their stuff is fine, but none of it's really hitting me that hard. As an example, there's a character who is like a cool snake person. And her, I believe she uses she, her pronouns. Her like thing that she's struggling with seems to be a sort of metaphor for depression or some other sort of lifelong, chronic trauma or chronic mental illness or mental, struggle that is personified in a big dragon that exists in the world. And I just had like a little story beat where she teaches me how to meditate and talks about how her father tried to confront his version of the dragon more head on and violently, and that didn't work. And so she's trying to be mindful in this different way and blah, blah, blah. And like that stuff is working, but it's not knocking it out the park for me in a way that's like especially memorable. And I think that maybe it will come together as I get to know these characters more and more, but it can be very easy to see these characters just kind of slip into trope is the wrong word, but archetype is probably more generous, but also at the same time, there's a degree to which it's like, okay, I get what this character is now. This is the lovelorn ex. This is the depressed snake lady, classic character tropes. But like that, they're right now that I haven't seen much like very strong differentiation. I'm gonna keep plucking at it because I hit this point last night where I was like, oh, this is actually I'm having a good time with this.
Is it just a too on the noseness? Like when you're talking about that, I'm thinking of Pyre, which I think also deals with characters who are clearly like there's who they are and how they present, and then there's the thing that is going on beneath the surface.
Dude,
that
Pyre
like,
fucking
uncover.
slaps so hard.
Yeah,
the fact that you brought that up, I think, really clicked a lot of this into place for me. That Pyre is such a good example of character writing, where maybe at some point on a whiteboard or an Excel spreadsheet, someone said, "And this person's problem is that they have a rough relationship with their sibling, and this person's problem," you know what I mean? But then in the process of writing that character, all of the people you interact with in the world of Pyre come alive in a way that feels complex and feels like if you scratched at their surface, you'd be able to keep scratching away and finding more and more depth there. I haven't hit that yet here, and I think part of that is the structure of the game. In Pyre, you're constantly not spending time with people. There's always that sense that you're missing an opportunity to like go dig into someone's backstory because you have
you have to say goodbye to someone.
You have to say goodbye to them often. Yeah. And in fact, that structure literally of that game, right, is every rotation you're saying goodbye to someone, right? So there's already a direct comparison to Spiritfarer in some way. These are games about sending people on to something else. Different things, presumably. I don't think that you're sending them on to the same end that you do in Pyre, which I don't want to spoil because if you haven't played Pyre, please go play Pyre. But there is that same sense, and yet your everything feels linear is the wrong word, but there's a degree to which, because your progression is so straightforward in Spiritfarer, it doesn't have that same feeling of like, all right, you've woken up in Stardew Valley or Harvest Moon or another similar game. What do you want to do today? What's the thing you want to prioritize? Because it feels like you're eventually going to prioritize everything. It's just the order in which you're going down the list. Right. And that's not a detriment. It's just not the game I thought it would be. Also, here's the thing that worked maybe the best for me. You had a double jump, and then last night I got a float. And there were some like platformy things and some Metroidvania-y things of like, I went back to the mine and realized now that I have the ability to float, I can catch an updraft inside of this quarry and go to the top and get some extra different minerals. And that's going to scratch an itch no matter what. I go back to this town and then I have a double jump, I can get to a different area. And what I'll say is they made a 2D game that moving around feels really good in.
Yeah.
Like they must have realized very early, if we're going to do a 2D side-scrolling version of this, especially where you're building your boat into like weird shapes, so it's like giant towers and buildings all on different parts of the boat, it needs to be fun to jump around there and climb and stuff, and it is, and they got that part extremely right. And so that also, I think, helped me last night, part of it click into place. It's just like, oh wow, cool, I do love to explore a cavern and jump around and get rewarded for poking around at things. There's a point at which I climbed to the top of a mountain, there was a little like ladder up to a patio area, and I climbed up to that, and there was like a pair of chairs and a table. And I climbed up to that, and I'm like, what am I doing up here? So I guess I'm on the top of the mountain. Let me just jump off and hold right and float as far as I can. And I floated for 30 seconds to the right, because I'm going down this whole mountain. And because I did that, I landed on a little island you can't reach any other way that I didn't even see before, that had like 2 treasure chests. And I'm like, all right, they understand that I'm going to do this and I should be rewarded for poking around at the game. that makes me feel better about a lot of what might be coming, because I can see now the hooks for an ability to go up a zip line and ability to do this and that. That stuff I think is going to be continue to feel rewarding, because just the core mechanics of moving around feel good. So that's Spiritfarer. That's out now on Switch, and I think also on PC and other places. Yeah, I've been playing it on PC, so
yeah.
it'd be fucked up if they only launched it on Switch, but gave me a PC review code. So
No, that embargo
yeah,
was
it is.
yesterday or 2 days ago.
A couple days ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, then there's some other stuff there that's like not coming out for a little while. There's a Hypnospace release on Switch, and they announced some extra stuff, right?
And keyboard and mouse support, weirdly.
On Switch? That's
On
funny.
Switch.
That's very funny.
Should let me.
I forget what the bonus stuff is, but that'll be later this month, I think.
I want to use keyboard and mouse on Splatoon. Just like people.
Just fucking own people.
If it's possible, let me do it, Nintendo.
I think of the other stuff, the thing that stood out the most was Card Shark.
That game looks great.
That game looks cool as shit. That is by the team who made Reigns, the kind of kingdom management mobile game. But despite having the word card in the name, is not that game. This is a game about being a card cheat in, I want to say, 18th century France. And has just a really sharp, kind of watercolor. I don't know if it's watercolory. I don't know my art terms well enough. I guess it isn't watercolory now that I'm looking at it. But like a sharp hand drawn design. And it looks like you're learning how to cheat at cards and getting shot or getting people around you shot, depending on how things go, as people believe that other people might be cheating. That looks pretty good. So. Anything else stand out for people of like upcoming stuff or future
one,
stuff?
Hades.
Oh, Hades. All right. There was that dope Hades.
Hello, Elizabeth. I don't know how much this is going to get picked up on the microphone.
Okay.
She's eating her toe. Hades, which is going 1.0 this fall, and I've been putting off because I like to wait for the 1.0. And this one I didn't even like, hey, I'm going to check it out and see if I like it. Like, I know I'm going to like it. And even though I've been hit or miss on the action elements of Supergiant stuff,
too.
I play all their games. Like, I wish Pyre would just be a visual novel. Like, the sports part of it was like my least favorite part about it, but I loved it. So I loved the characters in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely worth pushing through, even if that part doesn't click for you.
Yeah.
And so Hades, it sounds like they're lining up the 1.0, if not day of, like really close, because that's what they were communicating on social media. Was like, yeah, the Switch version is lining up with our exit from early access. So that makes me excited, because if I was going to play that anywhere, like I'd love to be able to play that on Switch. And also the fact that I can play it. It sounds like I'm going to be able to track progression between both. They're going to do something like the original Sin studio, Larian did with Divinity, where you're going to be able to split progress between. It's like unclear to me. I'd have to go back and look if it's like, is that in real time where I can just jump between PC and Switch, or is this a situation where I got to pick one or the, like if I started on PC, I can bring it to Switch, because the setup I have in my house is like I'm often have a Switch in a different part of the house, but I also have my Apple TV connected to my big TV upstairs where I stream games from my PC. So I'd love the ability to it's everyone's at sleep. I want to sit and play Hades on the big TV. But either way, I'm just excited to play that. And and Grindstone, I wanted to shout out.
Yeah.
One of my favorite games from last year. In line with like 3 or 4 different Apple Arcade games that are coming to Switch. Grindstone was yet another one of those.
Yeah.
Well, Patrick, it's been great having you on.
We hear a baby.
Well, let's we'll work our way towards a break, and then I'll evaluate where I'm at.
Okay,
Break.
sounds good. 2 other quick shout outs. She dreams elsewhere. She dreams. Excuse me. Where is that? Yeah. Also, I don't know how that's happening. I don't like it.
Is this a bit?
I think this is a bit. I think we've stumbled into a bit.
Okay, someone is controlling that. Is that Kato?
It's Kato. It has to be Kato. Yes.
I'm
Untitled
sorry.
Goose Game also
2 keys.
got 2 geese. This is true. Untitled Goose Game, 2 geese. Untitled Geese Game. I think people have said it,
Yeah.
but I'll say it too. Untitled Geese Game. Does it have a date? They're adding multiplayer. They're adding local multiplayer to Untitled Goose Game.
Coming soon, I think was the thing. So no, I don't believe it has a date. But
Okay,
it looks
great.
the September 23rd. Sorry, I lied.
No matchmaking.
September
Lazy
23rd.
devs.
Greedy devs, lazy devs. The thing I did want to shout out was She Dreams Elsewhere, which is a game Kato and I have spoken about before.
Yeah.
Kind of really cool looking RPG. Early 2021 for that. So that's, also struggling. That game Patrick and I played the demo of
Oh, right.
on the last save
Super
point.
excited.
That's
Look for
later
that
this
on a
month.
stream at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Please look up that stream if you've missed us playing that game. Woof. All right, we're gonna take the break. I feel like the goose yelling at me made me more want to take a break than the baby yelling at me. So maybe I got to rethink.
Baby
my
started being
priorities.
quiet after she can't hear the goose. Maybe she can feel the goose through the.
You gotta feel the goose within sometimes. Anyway, let's take a break, and when we come back, we can figure out what the hell the rest of this podcast is. All right, we're back. Hello. Patrick's gone. Patrick went to go take care of a baby, I guess.
Small child.
Small child. I have one other game I want to shout out that is coming out soonish. Kind of like the release date kind of snuck up on me here. There's a game coming out called Star Renegades. That'll be out, I think on Steam and on console, but I don't quite remember if that's true. I should double check it. I've been playing it on PC. It is.
Steam says September 8th.
Yeah, that's correct. I just can't remember if it's coming to other platforms or not.
Yeah, PS
or if
there's
it
a
is
PS4 trailer. I don't know. Doesn't seem to have a date.
Yeah, who knows when. So that's a game that I think has shown up at a couple of events. I think we played it originally at a PAX 2 years ago. I mean, it would have to be at this point, right?
Yeah.
But more than just a year ago, more than like PAX West 2019, I think. Maybe it was PAX East 2019, but I think it may have even been before that. And here's what I knew about it going in. I knew it was a really pretty looking pixel art RPG. I thought maybe it was a roguelike, but I wasn't 100% sure what that, if it was. I knew that there was some sort of interesting combat stuff for my demo, but it didn't feel like it was. I remember being like, okay, this is basically an RPG with some slight differences in terms of the way like the turn order went or something, but nothing was like really distinctive about what that was at the time when I played it. It was basically that really pretty pixel art like RPG that is set in space, very sci-fi, very like big battle armor stuff. The demo that I played, the preview build that I played, really sold me on this game. And it sold me partially because of a couple of new features, but also just because the core like combat design has some really clever stuff going on. And I have to be very like clear on how I describe this, because if I'm not, I know it's going to be frustrating to hear me just talk about the way JRPG combat goes. Here's the gist. At the top of the screen is a timeline, right? I guess what I'll start with is it has a lot of stuff that you know from other JRPGs. It has like damage affinity type stuff, right? Where it's like, oh, this character is weak to lasers. This character is strong against AoE attacks, right? They're this enemy type, right? Stuff like that. On the top of the screen, there is a timeline. And on that timeline is where everyone in this given turn is going to go when you hit the go button. Your characters and their characters. Your characters go, everybody goes depending on what type of attack they're doing, what type of action they're taking. So defense means you go first. Right away, you put your hands up, you put up your shield, and you get that damage reduction or whatever. If you're doing a big wind-up swing, like a heavy attack of some kind, that's going to go towards the end of the timeline. If you go before the enemy goes, you crit the enemy, and that gives your attack a little bonus. And depending on the attack has the bonus pre-written into it. So let's say you have an attack that does 20 damage. It also has a little box on it that says, hey, and if you do this to an enemy before they get to go, maybe it also does an extra 10 damage, and it pushes the enemy back on the timeline by 15 units. If you're able to shove the enemy off the timeline, they don't get to go that round. every enemy also has a little counter on them that says how many times can you push them before they like put their feet down and don't move on the timeline anymore. And that sticks around for a full round after you've hit that limit. And so that means, let's say that number is 2 and you hit them twice to push them off the timeline. Well, next round, they're going to act no matter what. You're not going to be able to push them at all. And that happens whether or not you don't get to decide if you push them or not. If you attack them before they go, you're doing whatever that push is. And so you have this thing of like, all right, I have 3 characters. I'm fighting 3 characters. I really want to push their big bruiser off the side this round so I don't have to get hit by this big super attack. But I also want my weakest character to do their big AoE attack, but that's going to cost me one of the pushes that I do on this big bruiser. But okay, wait a second. If I move him down the line a little bit, I can do a heavier attack, because that means he's going to be further down the line, so I can do that. And it kind of cascades in this really fun way of putting the puzzle of every turn of combat together. So that was already like, oh, this is good. Like, this scratches a lot of my brain in a good way, because on top of all of that, you're going, okay, this character is strong against heavy attacks, this character is weak against lasers, or whatever.
Just that part of it really sounds like it would scratch a similar itch to like Into the Breach in some way, of the idea of like positioning, but it's like a different type of positioning. But
it's
like
a different, but it's the same thing of like, or it's like Into the Breach, or it's like the Spire.
The ways that your different characters are doing things so that the whole turn ends up coming out the way you want it, right? Like
totally. So that's already one. Then the second thing that hit me was like, oh, this game has in Darkest Dungeon, where there's like you sit at campfires and like restore your health and buff each other. This game has that, but on top of just having it, it also has with your player characters a like relationship bar that fills up as you give each other buffs, and that unlocks permanent buffs to each other and also eventually team up attacks. And this is a game with permadeath, which means you're absolutely going to get people up to level 3 friendship or whatever, and then lose one of them, and that's going to sting in exactly the way I love. And then finally, the thing that was like, wait a second, are they doing this? Wait a second, is this this? The throne room is where you can view details on the Imperium hierarchy and all currently known leaders, behemoths, and adversaries.
Whoa.
From time to time, you will be brought here to witness events such as deaths, promotions, and introductions within the Imperium. You can also access the Imperium throne room directly from the main menu. This is the Nemesis system. Someone finally did it. And so some characters also just straight up have things that are like, hey, I'm immune to counters. Hey, if you do this, I get enraged. It seems like a very simple version of this system. They all do have like different voices, not literal voices, but writing. They're written to have different voices, different like personalities basically. And that is pretty cool. And also my understanding is I haven't lost to one of these yet, but it's similar to Shadow of Mordor or Shadow of the other one, what is the other one called? What's the sequel called?
Shadow of War.
Shadow
of War is right. Okay, Shadow of War. Yeah, right. Because Shadow of Mordor, obviously, where if they beat you, they go off and develop new skills or whatever. And so suddenly I'm like, oh, there's enough here that it's not just the pretty game anymore. There's like stuff happening that I'm now invested in seeing if it lands over the course of a full campaign. The narrative gist is there is a Imperium and it's conquering dimensions, and you're jumping from dimension to dimension in order to like stop them before they conquer everything. And this is like the packaging of the roguelike element of this game is, well, we lost this dimension, let's move on, which is literally Into the Breach, right?
Yeah.
Now that I think of it, that's like a timeline thing in Into the Breach, but this is a very similar thing. And I'm not yet sure how it works in terms of like where is progress kept, what is run to run progress look like. The demo that I played, I didn't get to the point if it's in there. I never died in this demo, and that's probably that's just because I'm so good at this game. So I'm curious, but like it definitely went up in my this is out in a few weeks. I am now pretty excited about this from what had been just kind of like a loose curiosity. I'm happy to poke at this in a couple of weeks. So that's out on September 8th, which is in just a few weeks. So looking forward to that. Do y'all want to talk about anything before we go into emails? Y'all been playing anything else? Rob, I know you've been continuing to poke at Troy.
Yeah, but I want to, like, we talked about it on Through Ahead this week. If there's more, I want to give it a week and see some other stuff, right?
Okay, that makes sense.
I have a hot take about that game that, like, a few other classicists will care about and nobody else will. So I got to save that for when Patrick's around.
Yes. Also, Rob, did you talk about Other Side on this podcast or only on 3 Moves Ahead?
Only on 3 Moves Ahead.
People should go listen to that episode.
Yeah,
give people the pitch on that episode really quick, or on what this game is and why they should go listen to it. Okay, so
Other Side, Astor Johnson wrote a review of it for us. Other Side is a tactics game where you are battling like the forces of despair and darkness, and the suffering is the term of art in the game.
Yeah,
and you are basically leading squads of the Daughters of the All-Mother. In this like all black and white, like monochromatic, like battlefield, and you basically are going from dimension to dimension and like engaging these like eldritchy monsters in settings that are kind of a mishmash of different like things and objects from completely different time eras, right? So parts of it'll look like rain-drenched streets of like 19th century London. Other parts of it will look modern, some older, some just are like in this underworldy limbo zone. But it is entirely about managing timelines. So everything your characters do basically uses up action points, and action points, like the action points you have banked, determine where you go in the timeline. And so the entire thing becomes about figuring out order of play and how you want to manipulate that time zone, that timeline to your advantage. So to give you an example of like one of like the core trade-offs is if you run one of your soldiers' batteries all the way down, use up all their action points, you enter what's called burst mode. And they begin like it's kind of their final like leaving it all on the field. They get some extra movement, some extra attacks, some extra abilities, but then it exhausts them. And the next time around, they will be the last people to go. And so the other side will basically have free reign of the map, at least as far as that character goes. And you'll be a sitting duck. And so a big part of it is about like knowing when you want to make your moves, but also you do have like a lot of reprisal postures. So you can like sort of hedge and say, I'm not going to burn through a lot of AP. I'm going to put this person in a return fire posture. And that will have an area of effect where like literally you have a character who can like the minute somebody tries to attack one of their squad mates, she pulls out a pistol and like I think can literally shoot down even projectiles in midair. It's wild. It's cool as hell. But the thing is, of course, if that doesn't happen, you've kind of wasted the move, right? And so there's a lot of like that trying to anticipate. The crucial point here, though, is that it is deterministic. Like what the enemies will do is not a mystery. They have pretty clear cut like behaviors, and your job is to learn them and basically like read the map. What is the problem before you? What are the moves the enemy is almost certainly going to undertake? And then what is the optimal way to anticipate and plan around that?
Right.
It's nightmarishly hard. It's last thing I'll add here. It is a sort of roguelike game. It is a run-based game. Basically, your daughters will die and they'll go to the graveyard. And you have the option of like resurrecting them. You have to pay, there's a bunch of different types of currency, but every time you resurrect them, they come back more fucked up, and it gets more like Fall of the House of Usher type characters coming back from beyond. The other element of this is the only way to heal characters from damage they've suffered during battle is to sacrifice other characters in your roster who are like of a similar level. And so, like, you are kind of like you are summoning your daughters into existence from
Damn.
like this wellspring of like magical energy. But then also to get everyone ready up for the next fight, you have to like murder some of them and get your squad back up to strength.
Maybe the All-Mother is the bad one. Have we thought about that? Who could say?
Yeah, it's yes. Who who is driving the suffering in this world? But yeah, it's tough as hell. I think you
also
would really
the thing
like
that
it.
you haven't fully emphasized is how much looking at this game makes you think, in what way is this connected to Lacuna Coil? I need to understand where does Nightwish enter into this process? It has the biggest evanescence energy I've ever seen in a video game.
That is Astrid's review is really well worth reading because she is completely vibing with what this game is putting down, but it is like you have to be signed on for that. You have to be like,
that is the vibe.
Yeah, like just dripping gothic emo energy. You need to be there for that because otherwise you might be like, this is kind of corny. And yes, it is, but this is also kind of cool. Also, yes.
Let yourself indulge. I mean, the name of the game is Other Side, spelled CIDE.
Yeah, I was about
not
to bring that
like,
up.
Yeah, it's like killing
Great
the
album
other.
name.
It's an incredible album name.
It just reminds me of Broken
unbelievable.
Side. I don't want to go down that road.
No, we don't need to go down that road. We do not. All right, Kato, do you have anything you want to shout out before we get to emails? Because we got some emails.
No. I've only really touched on Spiritfarer for a very little time, and I need to put more hours into it. I played Slay the Spire again. That game's still good.
That game's still
Turns
good.
out
That game's still fucking good.
The starting character I had a lot of trouble with the first time I played that game, and immediately jumped to the Soylent, which you unlock after playing one of the what is it, Ironclad? Yeah,
Ironclad's right there.
And then I never looked back. And then I got it on PC because it was
great.
super. I got it on PC because it was super cheap, and I was just like, oh, that'd be great to have it somewhere else. I can now like put it in another window if I need to, like while I'm doing other stuff on my PC.
Yeah.
And I played now knowing, like, having played so much time as the Soylent, going back to this one, like knowing Slay the Spire's kind of general flow has made me realize that I actually like the Ironclad a lot more than I thought I did. Like I hopped off so quickly because it was like it felt like I wasn't really clicking with it the first time around, but that was also because it was my first time playing Slay the Spire at all when I was playing it on Switch.
Sure.
So, that's been fun.
That game's still great.
It's
all right. Let me tell you, we got some emails in about restaurant rivalries. We even got some in about more bad corporate emails. We'll see how many we get through. If you have notes on either of these things or questions, you can send them to gaming@vice.com. First one comes in from Janie, who says, heard your request for restaurant rivalry stories and thought of this one from my hometown. A franchise of this trendy acai bowl chain opened up downtown and immediately became wildly popular. A few months later, following their rapid success, the store moved a few doors down to a larger location. Shortly after, a different off-brand acai bowl place opened up in the original location. The new place was apparently owned and operated by the disgruntled former manager of the original store. Demand was not enough to sustain two separate overpriced fruit bowl places on the exact same block, so both closed down within the year. My theory is this was the old manager's plan all along, but I have no evidence to back this up. I love the idea of the bitter old fruit bowl manager being like, I'm gonna end fruit bowls in this town once and for all.
This is how I win. Yeah,
exactly. God. This one I like this person combined our emails, our email requests. We said send us bad boss emails, and then also can we deal with can we talk about rival restaurants? And this person wrote in restaurant boss stories. I used to work at a local Mexican restaurant that had been open since the 70s. The owner was a very strange guy. He owned a Ferrari and a couple of Ducati motorcycles, but was so cheap that he wouldn't pay anyone to do maintenance on the restaurant. He would do it all himself. It's a classic boss story. It was always fairly leaky, but at one point it was bad enough to have a 6-inch sheet of water coming down the wall in a thunderstorm. I never actually went to the owner's house, but I heard stories. It was apparently a replica of the house from Gone with the Wind. He was at least in his 50s, but didn't have a stove, just a microwave and a fridge. Apparently the house was more or less empty. Really weird guy. Ended up getting fired from there because I was giving food to a previous employee. All things considered, I would still eat there, though. I would not. This place does not sound sanitary to me. Have either of
That's
you
a
ever
lot of water to be flooding in on the regular.
Yeah.
It's a lot of water. Have you either of you ever worked at a place where there's just like a nightmare boss in like a retail or food service situation?
Like, I mean,
Maybe I should ask, have you ever worked at a place where there wasn't a nightmare boss in a food service or retail situation?
Yeah,
Ooh.
once.
Okay, that's good.
I got lucky with my coffee life experience in high school. I worked for a pair of gay men who opened their own coffee shop in Lake Worth, Florida. They were great. Unfortunately, the location they had very little foot traffic. I did a lot of nothing during those days, and they went out of business in like 3 years, which was unfortunate.
That sucks.
But they were nice people.
Always happens to the nice ones first.
Yeah.
Rob, it sounded like you had like a particularly terrible...
No, I mean, yeah. So I worked at this liquor store. I told the story ages ago on Idle Weekend, but I'll just revisit it quickly here. I worked at this place where it was a large liquor store, and it was inherited, right? So the guy running it had inherited it from his dad, along with just boatloads of unprocessed trauma that I sympathize with, but also he had used as the hard like core of just being a colossal piece of shit. And after a point, you know, you start reaching the conclusion, it's like, maybe your family didn't like you because you suck. Maybe you were rejected from the nest because you're awful. And people pick that up. But his whole deal was like, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a great businessman because look at the successful business I run. I sell cheap beer to people who like beer. And I inherited that. I'm a genius. But after a time, he started to feel like, am I a genius? Like, how do I put my mark on this? So he got really into wine. He was like, no. Yes, the thing that pays the bills is misleading advertisements in local papers about sales of the tall boys of Coors. Yes, that is how I get most of my foot traffic, but I'm going to get really into wine. I'm going to be a wine guy. I'm going to pay for like sommelier classes and shit. I'm going to every year go to the wine country of some part of the world and check that out and get really into wine. And then after a little while with that, he reached the conclusion he needed to open a French restaurant. And I think literally like on the sign was like, such and such as haute cuisine. And that was his, this was his baby. And so that kicked off a series of problems. One of which is that he had no business running a restaurant. It's a tough business. He didn't know anything about it, nor did he like have any sense of like what good food was, right? Like no matter what, like any way you sliced it, this dude was a guy from like central eastern Wisconsin, right? Like there's only so much of the world he'd seen. Like he journeyed widely, but he hadn't broadened him at all.
I see
right?
what you're saying. Yeah. Okay.
The other thing he became like really hell-bent on was he just started obsessing over margins at the restaurant. And so he started to like I became friendly with the cooks, which is why I knew what happens in the story was going to happen. I became aware of the fact that the entire cleaning staff were heavily disgruntled and were planning a walkout. And they were like, fuck this guy. We're not going to be here on the weekend. Like he's pulled too much shit. And he did pull shit all the time. He's one of those guys who'd love to like try to docu-pay for just like minor shit. And believe me, you're being paid minimum wage in Wisconsin, right? Like it's not like you have a lot of pay to give up. But he just loved to like make you come into his office and like beg him to take back, like to undock the pay basically and like let you off the hook. So the entire staff hit the point that they were like, you know what, come Friday, which is the busiest night of the week, we're just not showing up. Fuck that guy.
Wow.
And so they didn't show up. And I just sort of waited the entire day for it to dawn on him that nobody was coming. And he starts calling the phones, hey, where are you? And he realizes nobody's coming. And so he is like, does anyone here know how to cook? And I sort of knew how to cook, but like not much. But that put me near the front of the line for salvaging the shift. And so it turned into a situation where like that very day I had to start prepping the soup for the weekend. And then I was going to have to work the shift in the restaurant doing prep. And he was like, we're gonna change the menu. Of course, like we'll just say, it's a special menu tonight. It's a steak night at such and such as Haute Cuisine restaurant review or whatever. And also, we need the charcuterie plate. So run across into the liquor store and the bags of cheese curds we've got by the checkout, grab those. We're having charcuterie tonight, baby. Also, he didn't know about food storage, so a lot of the cheese curds had molded.
No.
Because he stacked them. And if you stack cheese curds, the ones in the center aren't at food safe temperature.
No.
And so like you're pulling them out and I'm like, ooh, this doesn't look good. Also, they were aged cheese curds, which is impossible. Like that is not the nature of the curd. So run over there, start prepping this thing the entire day. Like I literally had to run to the library and grab Anthony Bourdain's Leal cookbook because I was like, where do I get like French food that like can just be like banged out all day? Yeah. Leal seemed like a decent, like he was always very non-romantic about that place. It was a big fancy French bistro, but like they did volume. That was their business. Mm-hmm. So I start like pulling recipes from that. And I'm like, look, we're making a mushroom soup. We're making a cream of mushroom soup. This is within my capacity. I ran to this place called Bella's that was run by this ex-Johnsonville meats butcher. And I always think about this guy and he breaks my heart a little bit because his dream was to create like an Italian grocer. Mm. And he was doing this in Wisconsin. And nobody wanted the things he was trying to bring to them. Like
I'm trying to give you the world here.
Yeah.
I'm trying to show you.
And the other thing is, I didn't realize at the time, but he clearly referred to things like the reason he's really glad to be out of Johnsonville is because like working in Johnsonville was like a traumatizing experience. Like working at large animal processing centers is like dire fucking work. And there's a reason that like meatpacking companies made it a crime to record what happens inside these facilities. This dude was like, this is my ticket out. Like, I'm just gonna share with people my love of fine Italian cheeses, pasta, charcuterie.
The good things.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. Like this guy introduced me to rapini and I'd never seen it before in my life. And he was like, no, you gotta have orecchietta and rapini. And
a real if you like, build it, they will come model.
Yeah. And they didn't.
And they didn't.
Oh.
Yeah.
But I walk in there
Kevin
and
Costner alone in a baseball field.
So I walk in there and I lay out the problem for him. And he's like, okay, so how long do you have before the weekend shift starts? And I was like, I got about like 18 hours. Like we're having this conversation outside his place before it opens. And he was like, okay. So what are you looking for here? And I was like, I need to make stock. And he was like, I don't have enough stock for you, but I do have these marrow bones. Do you want so I'm taking garbage bags full of marrow bones out of this place at like pre-dawn hours and dragging them back to this restaurant and starting the stock making process. Then I hand the receipts off to my boss, and this is where I start to know I'm fucked. I hand my receipts over for like all the mushrooms I bought, which is
the
a
stuff
ton.
you need.
Yeah. He looks at it and he was like, so he does some quick math and he's like, this is going to be like $1.50 a bowl. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, that's too much. Cause I only charge like $4 a bowl. Like my margins. And I didn't realize at the time, this is already an insane margin, right? This is a good margin in terms of like, $1.50 per bowl to make this thing. He's charging like north of $4. He's not doing badly. He's making bank on fucking soup.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I need it to be more like 29 cents a bowl.
That's
and
nothing.
I talked to the bartender later that night, and he was like, the only way you're getting that margin is if you're serving fucking Campbell's. He was like, that's because all the staff there knew what was
Campbell's.
up. Everyone knew, like, everyone was a restaurant pro. And so, like, everyone on the front of house side, like, I was treated like an adopted puppy from that day forward because, like, everyone saw that I was basically back there trying to, like, keep this shit on the rails for a shift while actively being sabotaged by this dude. So, we rush it. The soup was good. Like, I gotta be honest, going from 0 in the morning to like a finished, cream of mushroom soup that was like fucking delicious.
Like a good one. Yeah.
It was good times. Like, it was really cool. And I should shout out here that my partner like helped me like do a lot of the prep that day. So we're both in there. Like, extra labor came in for this while we tried to make this happen.
God.
So then during the shift, the other thing I learned about my boss, who was like, I'm going to be the grill man. I'm going to do final platings. Is had a little trouble where he couldn't help but like take little nibbles of people's food. Like,
he's just making sure it tastes right, Rob. He's just giving a little final. It's a final.
So there's a point where he's about to send the first order of the vaunted charcuterie plate out, which is literally like cubes of industrial Wisconsin cheddar, cheese curds, some red grapes.
That's charcuterie.
Like,
that's not
summer
charcuterie. That's charcuterie.
Yeah.
You cut it up, you char it maybe.
But the way it was fancy is he'd added some brie to that plate too. A little brie. Okay. So he starts cutting up the brie. And
also, I want to be clear, there's nothing wrong with a cheese plate. With just that plate is fine, but you don't have to tell me that it's something it isn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but also it was a really boring cheese plate. People were paying for like, I want some nice cheese and some nice meats. And like literally it was like a fucking Armour summer sausage. Like, it's not like, I don't think you're doing people a favor by providing this. Anyway.
No, yeah, I'm just saying, if you tell me the truth about what it is, I'm a low rent motherfucker. I'll eat it. But
yeah. So he cuts the brie and he's like, it doesn't cut like the cheddar. It's kind of goopy. So he sort of slaps it onto the plate and then looks at the knife and there's all this brie still on it. And he takes his finger and like scoops the brie off, pops it in his mouth. Then, without cleaning shit, cuts another slice of brie and puts it on the plate and like repeats. And the bartender and I are just staring at each other like, what is like, this is in violation of so many codes right now. And he just went with it and was sending this stuff out. But the really like instructive part of this is people liked the food. Like, not a lot was sent back. People weren't walking out. Like, for where we were in Wisconsin, like 90% of the work was done by all the fucking velour that was all over the interior of that restaurant. And like, even though we were serving shit out the front of that kitchen, it didn't register with people that like they were having a really basic cream of mushroom soup, or that they were having like a tragedy charcuterie plate, people were happy.
People want to go out to eat. This is the thing we've learned this year. I bet people are dying to go to that place right now.
Yeah.
Kidding me?
Well, given what I know about how he would run his restaurant, like if that place is open, people are most assuredly dying to go to that place. But yeah, it was just one of those, like, it was such a weird day and it was so out of control.
Yeah.
And that was who this dude was, is he would just like alienate the shit out of people until they like raged out at him, and then he would like use that to further his narrative of, I can't trust anyone, people turn on me for some reason. And yeah, it was a wild night in the restaurant, but it was fun because it was like it was like being a tourist of like high pressure restaurant shit, like being totally slammed in a restaurant and like in the weeds, as it were. But there were no stakes. Like who gave a shit if I fucked up? It wasn't actually my job. My job was to like lift kegs into people's trunks.
Incredible. Well, thank you, Rob, for this journey down your history. I'm so glad we asked. I'm so glad that we got here. I love it. I have another email here. This one's from Chris, who has a Juicy Lucy update for us. As a lifelong resident of the Twin Cities, I feel that I need to comment on your discussion of this local food controversy. So, the rivalry between Matt's and 5-8 is absolutely real, but it used to be much lower stakes. Until the early 2000s, burger stuffed with cheese weren't a Minnesota institution, just this weird thing that two bars on the same street beefed over. However, during the rise of food TV, the Juicy Lucy was elevated to the burger of Minnesota by shows who needed some local flavor to talk about when visiting. So, now every burger place in the area serves them because that's what a Minnesota burger is. FYI, while Matt's is still just a single tiny bar with a Budweiser sign on the outside, 5-8 is now a huge sprawling burger monstrosity. In addition to expanding their original location, 5-8 has opened several secondary locations across the area, which are generally considered lower quality. Take that as you will. Personally, I'm not a big fan of these burgers. They're fine, but often the burger needs to be cooked to medium or even medium well to get the cheese inside sufficiently melted.
About temperatures.
That's what you were saying, If I'm going to eat a large burger, I'd rather have it cooked properly to medium rare and just have a ton of cheese on top than have it overcooked for the privilege of being burned by molten cheese on the first bite. Thank you, Chris. That's an important.
Sounds like Matt's is still the place to be. Then
I do that too. Like, have you ever read an email that puts you more on the side of Matt's? No, the food.
It's like a Twister where there's the good storm chasers and the bad ones. Like Matt's is the good one.
Matt's is
like
the good
Matt's
one.
like, I just love to sling burgers, and 5-8's like, this is our ticket to the top, baby.
Yeah. I got another update here from Joe, who describes themselves as our friend. Your friend Joe writes in and says, "Hello all. I live in Minneapolis and can see Matt's bar from my front yard. I can confirm they're doing pickup orders. I've worn face masks to get my burger fix in some kind of nega Jimmy Buffett's cheeseburger in the apocalypse type situation. Keep up the good work, and if you're ever in Minneapolis, I'd happily share all the best food places with you and buy you a burger."
Hang on.
Yeah.
So, at the risk of inviting more emails about a subject than we care to receive, there is a part of this I need to know.
Yeah.
How are the fries at these places?
How
Because like
are
burgers
the
are good,
fries?
but
It's very
like
important.
Yeah.
because like the thing that moves like a place from like, oh, it's a great burger to like a great experience is like when it's all just like delicious, right? When the fries like golden and crisp and like you don't even need the ketchup.
Yeah,
that's,
you love it.
dream.
That's it right there. I'm with you. Let's get some Matt and 5-8's fry or other sides. Like if you told me, I would prefer to if there's like if fries are good, his fries are a great default. I'd be like, oh, they also have great onion rings, and I'm like, okay, well that's the place I go to for a burger and good onion rings. Then that's fine. But you got to let me know ahead of time if that's the situation. This one comes in from Dan, and I have to read this one because I think I've told part of this story before, but this is a hometown story for me. Hey all, Austin is probably aware of this restaurant fiasco and may have more details than me about it, but as a kid, we used to go to Ocean City, New Jersey with my grandparents most summers. While there, we would usually get Mac and Manco's pizza, or as we called it, the beach pizza. Well, we stopped going when I was an older teenager in the 90s, and a few years ago, my parents decided to restart the tradition, so we started going in with my kids / their grandkids. Imagine our surprise when we looked up at Mac and Menko's to order pizza, only to find no sign of it, and instead to find that all of their locations were now Menko and Menko's, though still in the same iconic incandescent light bulb style. After looking into it, apparently there is a Mac's Pizza down in Wildwood owned by the same Mac family who no longer have any ownership in Menko's and Menko's. I have not been able to find any clear explanation of the split, though apparently the current owner of Menko and Menko did get convicted of tax evasion a couple of years ago. Anyhow, despite the mystery, despite the mystery, the beach pizza there is still amazing and remains a uniquely different style of pizza than any other I tried. I think it's mostly olive oil. They do a lot with olive oil, and it's just this is my favorite pizza in the whole world is Mac and Menko, or I guess now Menko and Menko pizza. I extremely like, this is my summer pizza. This was like what I grew up on in a real way, and it was always just so good. I'm just checking really quick. I don't think that there's no comment from Menko and Menko as to what happened on Mac. What happened with Mac? I really would love to know. So if anyone does have an answer on that, I please send it in.
Can you spell that real quick? Mac and Menko?
Manco, M-A-N-C-O. Mac, M-A-C-K. So Mac, M-A-C-K, and M-A-N-C-O. Again, you can find this because you can look up Menko's. I think Frank Menko's maybe tax evasion scandal. It's very
taxes
good.
are complicated. It is easy to get yourself in borderline trouble if you're not careful. Like I am sure I am confident that an honest purveyor of pizza could easily find themselves afoul of the law. Just because you're so all in on making good pizza that like reporting income accurately, who has time for that?
Yeah, fair. This is a long one. I'm gonna all right, I'm going to read this one from Caroline, who writes it, and read at least part of it. When I lived in the small town of Brunswick, Maine, there was a donut shop called Frosty's. Everyone loved the donuts. They would be brought to the shipyard the next town over, or a surprise treat for the high school class. The owners were very old and very Christian. The walls had neon Jesus signs, digital scrollers with Bible verses, posters, and placards. There was no open wall space to speak of. As the owners aged, the shop became less regular. They were already the kind of shop that opened at 4 a.m. and might be sold out by 6, but soon they were only open irregularly with no notice. I remember long nights ending in disappointment outside their locked door, the only light from inside, the Bible scrollers. They were looking to sell since they felt like they couldn't run it anymore. Their son did not take this well and wanted to run it himself. They wanted someone as religious as themselves to run the place, but had difficulty finding someone willing to buy. This was town drama. This was known drama for a couple of years, disseminated through Main Street gossip. Boo. Main Street, Main spelled like the state. Then the son stole the recipes and opened Frosty's 2 down the street out of a deli by the high school. There was no notice, just we're open. It was wildly successful. I do not know what happened between them as I moved away. But when I went back last, the original Frosty's was open all day, had barren walls, and the donuts were the same. That the son just took over the original spot, right? The son just bought them out, or they died.
You think?
Yeah, I think so. Or do you think
it sounds like they're just sort of grinding along?
Oh yeah, you think it's fine?
Is Frosty's 2 still like hopping? That's the question.
That's the question. You're
because
totally right.
If that's all that's left, then it was like one of those scorched earth. Like the Civil War left nothing.
Yeah,
and so now like we could have had an empire, but now we're just slinging good donuts.
Yeah,
but like the moment is lost. The institution is lost.
We could have had an empire, but all we have is Frosty's. The donut has been passed, Caroline continues, in my esteem, by Granny Donuts in St. Paul, Minnesota. We gotta go to Minnesota.
Yeah, what's up with
That's what I'm hearing. It is run by an old Vietnamese man, his wife, and 2 generations of kids. The yeast donuts are the fluffiest I've ever had, and don't just taste of sweet, but of real flavor. The jelly/jam donuts have an actual depth to them, not just fruit sweet. And if you do not order enough donuts, he bullies you and sometimes gives you free donuts, which he insists you eat in front of him. If you try to compliment the donuts for eating them in front of them, he shushes you until you've eaten it and then tell him how good the donuts are after. He recognizes everyone and still makes them go through the routine. He is very kind outside of the donut bullying and checks in on customers and how they are together and that everyone makes sure that everyone gets to order free donut holes for the kids, etc. Love it. Reburgers. This is just a great email. I'm going to finish this email. The best greasy burger I've ever had was from a food truck on the park in Brunswick, back in Maine. A small truck run by two big brothers, one of whom was a Yankees fan and the other a Red Sox fan. The line stretched down the block from opening till closing, and it was a long block. The game was always on the radio. This is the opening to a Stephen King book, I believe. The best greasy burger I ever had was from a food truck on the park in Brunswick, a small truck run by two big brothers, one of whom was a Yankees fan, the other a Red Sox fan. The line stretched down the block from opening till closing, and it was a long block. The game was always on the radio. Love it. Incredible. Perfect. I know this space. I live here now. I could tell you about these brothers. The best burger I ever had, period, was by BK Janney in Bushwick, or Janie in Bushwick, though it seems they've moved to Williamsburg now. The burgers are spiced with za'atar and taste delicious, with excellently cooked fries. But they are the best burgers I've ever had because every time, without flaw, no matter what kind of spice or topping we asked for, they were cooked perfectly. The exact mix between crispy outside and soft inside, the exact midpoint between underdone and overdone. Their line chefs must be the best burger line chefs in the world. Thank you for the pod comfort in these times. May you and yours be safe. May we see capitalism fail. Caroline. Capitalism fall or fail. Either one's fine. Sure. All Caroline's
except
great
for these
email.
good, honest entrepreneurs.
Except for these motherfuckers. They get to keep going.
We need to find those burgers if we ever work.
I'm here on Goldbelly trying to find any of the places that have come up, and because I've been curious to try this fucking service out, right? But I have no idea if it actually works.
Sure. Well, we'll find out. I guess you should go through this list of emails and see if you can find any of them and try something out.
So far, it's not good. Like I think it's all too underground.
Yeah, but that's why it's good. That's why these places are still good because they haven't gotten the 5.8 treatment. I bet you can get 5.8 on there.
I can't.
Wow, not even 5.8.
Damn.
This one's from John in Louisiana, who says, the emailer from last week is getting robbed of ketchup. For people who don't remember, we had an email about someone who only got one spicy ketchup packet when they went through the drive-thru at Whataburger, or to pick up at Whataburger. At Whataburger, the spicy ketchup is elevated to be on the same level as regular ketchup given away by the handful, and my local stores always give plenty of either upon request. Shit. Also, ketchup packets at Whataburger come in the small sauce kind of tub. Think nugget sauce at McDonald's, not the small foil packets, so that reader is missing out on a lot of ketchup. Their ketchup is popular enough that you can buy Whataburger branded ketchup in bottles in grocery stores around here. Also, a regular Whataburger fits just under the price for a good cheap burger, and I think pretty good value for their size. Whataburger is just around Texas and neighboring states, but they just got bought out by an equity firm in Chicago, so it's either about to vanish or become Chicago's favorite burger, TM, something I'm not sure its local Texas fan base will handle either way. Love the show. Thanks for all the great hours every week, John in Louisiana. Thank you, John. Good update. There's another email here from Bradley, which I'm going to be honest, I just read all of to the rest of the crew, but it's. I just want to say, Bradley, thanks for sending it in.
We enjoyed it
a great deal. I will say this much: it is about the three-way beef between the Drip Beverage Lab, Brewster's Coffee Co-op, and Lift Coffee Bar.
Also, one of the motherfucking characters in this sounds like if there were anybody who I could somehow see suing Vice.
Yes.
Because some like alleged dirty laundry got aired in a letter reading. Like one of the characters in this is the sort of person to do it. And like, I would be super bummed if we all lost our jobs because like, look at this crazy coffee shop drama.
Yes.
And like, that is what did it.
I could believe it 100%. Nancy would call us into the office. Nancy would call us into a Zoom meeting and she'd be like, you really went after Al, huh? You really went I'm not going to say his last name because I don't want to get in trouble here. There's a million Als out there in wherever those coffee places are, presumably. But I'm just saying, if you're interested in Oklahoma coffee beef, it's out there. We had to cut it from the podcast because we didn't want to get sued. But let me tell you, it was good. So I trust you, Kato, to figure out how to
I'll
fix
figure that
this.
out.
I appreciate it.
No worries.
Well, Kata, this sounds beyond fixing. Like, unless they bring that Iguana Cafe back, like ASAP, I'm not sure.
God.
I'm not sure what was broken can ever be made whole again.
Here's a good one from Mads. Hey, folks, regarding the restaurant rivalries discussion this week, my town, Auckland, in New Zealand, or in I don't know how to pronounce this, which is bad. It's bad that I don't know how to pronounce this. Aotearoa, I think is maybe right, / New Zealand, has a famous long-running rivalry, a restaurant rivalry between the Mount Albert Barbecue Noodle House and the Mount Albert Barbecue Noodle House. Both businesses are right next to each other with near identical menus run by either cousins or brothers who had a disagreement when the original shop lease ended and set up 2 shops in its place. Because they have different stories about how the situation eventuated, it's impossible to know what the truth is. And at the end of the day, the only substantial difference is the decor and whether you want to buy bubble tea or not. So they're treated interchangeably by most locals. Yeah, well, the answer is yes, I want to buy bubble tea.
Yeah, obviously.
Obviously. There's been a bit of a media around the Mount Albert Barbecue Noodle House mystery, so you can learn more here or here. These are links to to a YouTube video and a spinoff.co.nz article. Personally, I've always gone to the one on the right because the one on the left has a confusing number of counters to order and collect at. That's, okay. There's a New Zealand Today video about this. Oh, this bubble tea looks good. These places look great. I want some noodles now.
I'm just going back to a quick thing about the coffee shop letter, just real quick.
Yes.
It should have been a tip-off that one of the opening anecdotes in that letter was about a story they decided they could not run in their local paper, in their college paper, because of the liability issues around
that is true.
it.
We should have at that point ejected from that. Yeah. For people who didn't hear the letter, which is everyone on this podcast, this person was going to write a story about them, and the local paper was like, well, this doesn't have to do with the school, even though a lot of students go there, and this is a story about a student who works there. So, Anyway. We got 2 different emails about this one, and so I'm going to read one of them. This one comes in from Natalie, who says, hey, friends, I'm writing my own local version of the Juicy Lucy debate. In Seattle, there are really only 2 options for fried chicken. Azelles, or Ezzles, probably Azelles, founded in the 80s by Azelle Stevens, and Heaven Sent Fried Chicken, founded in the 2000s by Azelle Stevens, after he left or was forced out of Azelles and was sued by his former business partner to keep the name. Azelles gained a fair amount of notoriety in the 90s when Oprah called it her favorite fried chicken, so I can understand why they were so desperate to keep Azelle's name on it after he left or was forced out. Still, if I had to drive around Seattle and see a bunch of restaurants with my name on them, I'd probably be pretty annoyed too. The chicken is virtually identical between the 2 chains, but Azelle's has more and better side dishes. This is a topic of much debate in Seattle, however. My opinion is definitive and also correct. Fun fact, Stevens himself is super Christian, so the uniform at Heaven Sent is a black t-shirt with the text, God is good all the time on it, which is kind of a heavy lift for a fried chicken restaurant. P.S. Neither chain does chicken sandwiches, and the closest Popeyes is a goddamn hour away, so what is even the point of any of this?
Damn.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I think that's probably it for this one. We still have a bunch in the chamber here we could come back to, so I think this will be a recurring thing. Please feel free to keep sending these in. I'm loving it. This is great.
That emails has just become the food zone. I love it.
I love it. I love this for us. It's so good.
There's a lot of Puma Adidas type stuff in the restaurant lore.
It's true. Listen, families are hard, is the thing.
Money's hard.
Money is hard. Passion is hard. Sometimes you want to be the best coffee chain in a small Oklahoma town and also be a raging asshole. I don't know who I'm talking about. It couldn't be anyone with litigious impulse, certainly. Thank you all for sending all these questions and stories in. As always, you can send yours into gaming@vice.com. I love these. These have brought a lot of joy to me, and there's still more to go. So tune in next week for more of those. You can find me on Twitter at Austin_Walker. Where can people find you, Rob?
At Rob Zachney.
Kato.
At @A_Kato_appears.
Follow everything we do, waypoint.vice.com. And I also want to quickly shout out something special that Vice and I believe Motherboard specifically are doing. But maybe it's not a Motherboard. I don't know. But I don't know how Vice works anymore. I only come here to do the damn podcast.
It's a motherboard joint.
I thought it was a mother bird. A mother bird. Motherboard.
It's a motherboard.
Can we get a week of bird
Motherboard.
content from Motherboard and call it Motherbird? Ask Jason about it. Jason,
Jason,
we're
we're here to
They used
feed
to have-
you directly into your mouth the hottest stories in tech and politics.
There used to be a bird board that I think
There was
was
a bird
started
board.
by a motherboard in general. So
Huh.
the
That,
content
to me,
is
that
there.
sounds like a Derek thing. Shout out
yeah.
to Derek,
Uh-huh.
who is no longer at Vice, but shout out to Derek. Anyway, the thing I'm shouting out is vice.com/themail. Like the mail that shows up at your door, MAIL, THEMAIL. A pop-up newsletter about the United States Postal Service and the election, brought to you by Aaron Gordon of Motherboard. The digital newsletter is free. Paying subscribers will get a printed zine mailed to them each month and bonus posts. You can find that at, again, vice.com/themail. There's also a drop, I think, at the top of this podcast about another podcast being made in the Vice network. I think one of those is going to go in this feed. Is that right, Kata?
Yeah, that'll be its own drop on its own.
All right. Well, you'll hear me do an intro to that also on that podcast that is called Vent Documentaries. So I guess look forward to that. Otherwise, we'll be gone until Monday. We're going to talk more about video games and some other stuff. Shout outs to Bowen for letting us use the track Miss You off the EP Pale Machine. Find out more about that at waypoint.zone/BOEN. I wish I had more for this weekend. I wish I would, thank you to everyone who has suffered through this week of the DNC with us. We
I was
don't have
about
time to get into it.
Did y'all catch that?
Yeah, we don't. We can't.
All of
we
that?
cannot open. We would need a dedicated.
No, I
hour.
have now tuned this out.
Okay.
I do not need to see.
Wiser than me.
Yeah, no, it'll just make me angry because the entire convention appears to be like, what if we just united with people who hate us to defeat Trump and then completely accomplish nothing for 4 years?
I just really want a platform. I really want to focus on what the thing the party should do is if it takes power, and not just that it needs power. I think that is not too much
wielding
to ask.
power is so aggressive, though. It's divisive.
Mm.
Yeah, really, I think we should just look at that deficit and see what's good.
See what's good. What's good, internet? What's good, deficit? A new podcast by Vice. We'll be back on Monday, hopefully in better spirits than we've been today. Though I will say, my spirits have been raised by all this restaurant beef. I really appreciate it one more time.
I'm starving, though.
Dude, I'm gonna get a burger. I'm gonna figure out what's the best burger in my neighborhood. Kata, you should see if that. I mean, you're kind of far from it, but you should see if that place that someone noted in Williamsburg delivers.
No, I was saying whenever the office opens back up.
Kata, remember those burgers from the food hall?
Fuck yes.
Oh, those are so good. Rob, did you ever get to go to that place with us?
I can't remember.
Oh,
I don't think we took
good.
Rob there. I think
The
that opened
mustard?
up after the
Oh.
last time. Yeah, they had this.
So is that
mustard sauce
the
that
food
was
hall
just-
with all the little restaurants, like the little
Yeah,
Defara
yeah,
outpost,
yeah,
all that? I don't
yeah,
think I ever
yeah.
had the burger.
The burger
No.
place may have opened after the last time you went.
Yeah.
Oh, they're so good.
so fucking amazing.
I miss Max.
Oh, I miss La Superior. I walked past there
Yeah.
recently. They have outdoor seating. They have outdoor seating
nice.
going. I'm not ready for it yet. I think by next month, if things haven't blown up because of school, school increasing rates of COVID, I think I'll finally be ready to do an outdoor seating meal. We'll see.
That's a
I've
bummer
eaten
with
in a
something
park.
like. Yeah,
I've done
that's
like
a
a
bummer with
coffee in the park situation.
Well, yeah.
La Superior,
No,
though, is that it doesn't travel well. That sort of thing.
That's exactly the thing.
Right,
You have
like,
to
you
eat it
have
there.
to
I
eat
don't
it
want
there.
to. Yeah, totally.
We've been able to enjoy morning coffees out after
Yeah.
taking the dog to daycare, which has been nice. But even then, I'm still sitting there outdoors, and I'm I feel a little weird and a
Feel
little
weird.
antsy. I'm
Yeah.
sitting here enjoying it, but also I am definitely low key antsy.
Maybe I do. Maybe
yeah.
I start with a coffee shop. There's a coffee shop near here that has outdoor seating, and I go with a mask, and I just chill with the mask. Maybe I do some work there. I bet I get more done doing that than I did all week elsewhere in my own apartment.
So the thing is, we set up basically we got a bench for our dining room table, a little corner booth seating, and
That's cute.
It's coffee shop vibes now. Like
Oh, I
I brought
love
the
this.
coffee shop here.
Fuck, I need
And
to
like
do
my
this.
productivity is through the roof.
I need it
because I can just corner up.
I
can
started
just
needing
post
to
up.
do. I started needing to do different type of work in the last like month or so, and it's killing me. I'm like my productivity level is so bad. It's on top of like travel and some other shit, and like needing to do other types of work on top of it. But it's hitting me in a bad way. It really
A lot of people
is.
moving out of my building. Like
You
can
asking
move
me
to
to
the
move in?
northeast, maybe. You
You're
move in.
like, come through
The rents are
Cafe-
cheap. The space
Cafe
is plentiful.
Zachney. God,
You could come by Rob Zachney's Cafe,
love
Gravitas
it.
and Bar Band.
see that
Haute-
sounds
haute
fantastic.
cuisine des acne.
Until we have a falling out, and I build a duplicate cafe in my apartment with different
fuck?
decor.
I catch like Kato and Natalie and Patrick in the elevator, and like what
Oh.
the fuck?
I love this episode of our TV show. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
You're all the way up on the 4th floor. I could just make it here. Anyway. Also, my coffee would be worse. It's just the truth of the situation. I know what it is.
But there'd be a lot of it. That's the thing. Like you would just
Yes.
have pots of
I
coffee.
have pots of yes.
Yeah. Whereas like you come to my place and it's like, I will offer, do you want coffee? And then 20 minutes later, I'll
You're
be
the
like,
donut
the
bully.
process
You're going to
is
be like,
finished.
so how is it? Don't tell me it's good before you drink, before you
Did
add
you
a
just
sip.
put sugar in that?
Oh my God, I would. Oh, Kato, I would not be happy about that at all. I would not be.
Oh,
Look,
I love it.
understand.
I love it. Sometimes
Wait, if I knew you wanted sugar, I would have brought the Demerara out.
Right,
Jesus
see
Christ.
God, why don't you just drink the milk for Christ's sake? Just straight from the carton. That's what you're doing, basically.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I thought you wanted coffee. If I'd known what you really wanted, I'd just given you the shitty coffee ice cream. That seems to be more your speed.
That seems. I can melt it for you. Would that make it better? God.
God.
All right, we're gonna end this podcast now.
Hang on, though. How am I the coffee
God.
bad guy? Because Patrick, of all of us, is the only one we know of who has told a loved one just to dump that shit down the sink.
Oh,
Like-
that did happen. I've never
Yeah.
done that. I've never done
Yeah.
that. There's even. Can I tell you the worst coffee story ever? I love my mom. I love my mom to death. So for years so my parents are divorced, and both of them are remarried happily. And well, okay, it's a little complicated. That's not true. Life happens. I love all of my parents. I have 4 parents. I love them all. I'm glad they're all in my life, etc. But the way that the Christmas worked out was I would do Christmas morning with my dad, but Christmas Eve with my mom and my stepdad, and like friends of the family and stuff. And one year, my mom made it a big deal. Both my mom and my dad are both big, like holiday spirit people. They love to feel like family is around, friends are around. They want to host events. They want people to be around. They have that. They believe deeply in making the entire home feel like that TV channel where there's a fire log on. That's the welcoming spirit that they exude. Or like a fireplace, I guess I could have said. And my mom, makes a big roast on Christmas Eve, a bunch of cookies. I think there may have been a cake this year, etc. And one year she's like, and we got a new percolator. We're a percolator family, which is like a very particular type
Bold
of
move.
coffee. But it is a bold move. But let me tell you, what it basically does is it gives you a baseline for coffee where you can just drink any coffee. My coffee resistance is through the fucking roof because I was raised on percolated coffee. Which, if you don't know what that means, go look up what a percolator is. But like, it is not, let's say, what you think of as like high class coffee preparation because of the way the water gets reused. But I quite like the taste of percolated
It's
coffee.
quite strong.
It's
And,
very
there's
strong.
Something like so when we would go to like Lake Michigan and have vacations there, like the cabin.
This is exactly the vibe.
Had the percolator, and like it is a particular type of coffee,
It'll
but
kick
in
you
my
in the
head
ass.
always means family and
Yes.
relaxation and like early mornings and
Yes.
like it will wake you the fuck up.
That is exactly the vibe, and that is the vibe in the house. So makes this new percolator, and it was like a new old percolator if I'm remembering right, like a vintage model that was like
The best kind.
the best, of course, the best kind, exactly, right? and poured, came out with the cups of coffee, finished the meal. The meal was delicious. My mom's a great cook, and came out with the coffee. She made it the way everyone liked it. Like, so she'd already put sugar in for people who wanted sugar. She already put in milk or cream. You know what I mean? She'd read the room. She knew what she was doing. Mm-hmm. Go to take my sip of coffee, and oh, there's a little something. Is there something wrong with the percolator? Let's go. And someone else said, ooh, there's like a weird taste here. Love my mom. Again, I'm going to underscore this. Love my mom to death. She had in her holiday haste, she had, there's a lot of cooking. There's a lot of to do. She had by mistake put salt in instead of sugar. And so we were all drinking salted coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Like heavily salted.
Like heavily. Not like, oh, there's a, what is that? What is a little pinch? No, like 2 teaspoons of salt in some of these coffees. And,
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have made a similar mistake making cookies. I had a giant jar of granulated sugar and a giant jar of table salt. And one day I was not being mindful and got to the point where I was like, I was excited about that cookie dough. I was like,
I know you were.
This is going to be good. And it was that Toll House recipe, which is like 75% sugar and just enough fat and flour to hold it together. Yeah. And it's just like, oh man, here's my cookie dough. And like just one of the worst things that's ever happened to me.
The real worst version of this ever for me was when I went to a diner in Somers Point, New Jersey, and ordered a French dip. I may have told this story on this podcast before. And a French dip, of course, is like kind of like a roast beef sandwich with au jus to dip it into, kind of like a beef gravy type thing. And they didn't produce the au jus instead. And I didn't realize this until I took my first bite. What they'd given me was a little bowl of maple syrup. And so I took that first big bite of this kind of roast beef sandwich, and a super sweet, syrupy sauce covering it. And then I asked the waitress, I was like, did you? And she was like, no. She just like brushed off I was like,
wait, what do you mean no? Like, no what?
She was like, it's supposed to come with au jus. And she was like, it's supposed to come, this is right, basically. She was like, I've served this correctly. I was like, well, can I get an au jus on the side? And here's the fucked up thing. She brought it, but in the time between bringing it and me asking for it, I ate 2 more bites of the maple syrup. I'm like, this is kind of good.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like maple good. Syrup, like it's sort of like before you have fried chicken and waffles, you're like, that doesn't seem like it would work.
You're right.
And then you have it and you order it at every place you go to from that point forward, where you're like, oh, this is on the menu? We're doing this? Hell yeah.
The only thing I can think of is that she thought a French dip was like a French toast.
Yeah.
Like that's what you serve it with or something. Yep. But I don't know. I don't know how you arrived there, but it was good. I did end up eating the second half of it with the au jus. There's like you cut it down the middle basically. And anyway.
Roast beef sandwich is the one thing I can't get with because I'm too fastidious, and like the whole like the soggy bun and like the juices just dripping everywhere. I'm like, oh, this is a nightmare. I can see that for you. I need more napkins.
I am also that person, but I just get more napkins. I'm also that I don't like my food touching unless it's like really meant to do that. And I constantly am cleaning my face while I'm eating. I don't like having any of my features.
So we're both like wash bears, basically.
Yeah, 100%. Yes, exactly.
No, I definitely will do the like. I could put this all on one plate, but what would be better is like a saucer for this side.
Yes, totally.
A small plate for this side, and the entree on the main plate.
That would be fantastic. Unless, again, it's explicitly a thing where I want there to be a commingling, but that's not every dish. You know what I mean? I'm not. Yeah. Anyway,
one of the most
whole plate together.
One of the things that I realized was really holding me back when I was learning to cook is a lot of recipes are like, and then you make it all in one vessel. You put it in the skillet and you bring it all together, or like you roast it all together.
Yeah.
And a lot of times those recipes are a million times better when they're all roasted separately or like cooked separately and then brought together. Like
I might disagree.
For instance.
Yeah, what's your for instance?
Like the breakfast skillet. Like there's nothing I like more.
You're totally right actually on that one.
You can't fry it all up together in a skillet. like the play is to do the potatoes separately and roast those up separately.
Yeah, I like to do the potatoes separately. 100% this.
Otherwise you can't control the moisture that's being released by the different foods, and like it all gets fucked up.
Maybe we're just not good enough.
You
at
don't
this,
do it at the same time. You do it in stages.
You do it in stages, but then you have to be really good, and you have to know exactly. And there's still like a lot of variability.
That's true.
The pepper you put in there might just like have more water in it, and then you're like, okay, well now things are getting soggy.
This is not. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally. We went. Sometimes people are like, ha ha ha. Austin said the podcast was wrapping up, but there's 20 minutes left. I'm like, no, there isn't. That's all pre-podcast material. We wrapped up immediately, and then Kato put the 20 minutes of the pre-pod afterwards. I knew what the fuck I was doing. This time, I'll say I also knew what the fuck I was doing, and that was extending this podcast for necessary reasons.
We're talking about breakfast.
We're talking about breakfast. We are here talking about
good
like
shit.
Home cafes and breakfast. Important stuff. Real shit. That's real shit. You were talking about the DNC? No. We're talking about real shit. Breakfast skillets, motherfucker. You heard of them? Because I want one now. That would be nice. Thank you. All right. We're going to wrap this up. As always, dream of the world in which you can make your own perfect breakfast skillet without needing to...
Did you almost say BrefEx?
Your BrefEx skillet.
Yep.
Yeah. BrefEx.
Perfect.
BrefEx is definitely the name of some sort of quaint... No, actually, BrefEx feels so chemically to me that if there was like some sort of breakfast food mega mart called BrefEx, I would imagine that would work.
For me, it goes to a pill that makes your mouth smell, your breath smell like breakfast.
It's like a breath fix.
Yeah.
Nasty.
Get your breath fixed with BrefEx.
Ooh, what's that? Is that a Chris sandwich?
Ooh.
Did you? Did you have Burger King this morning?
Smells great. So you're saying that this is a pill that would make your breath smell like breakfast foods?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know why, but you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes I guess you just need the smell, the taste, the leftover taste.
I love
it. Maybe
it.
this is like you're pretending to be a salt of the earth type. That's the
right.
It's like
right.
So you're campaigning in New Hampshire, and you're like, yes, I am a man of the people.
You had like a fucking Soylent.
I just came from
But instead, you take this pill, so you have that on your breath.
So people think you've eaten a big hearty breakfast skillet from whatever the local like famous breakfast places, but they know you didn't go. But you're a powerful politician. And what are they going to do? Confront you and say you didn't actually come here? All of this in my follow-up to the classic book, All the King's Men Jr. It's a political scandal, unlike none you've ever heard. People know I've gone off to do some writing on the side. No one knew that this is what I was working on. I'm doing
opens on a long description of like 50 miles outside Mobile, and after a long strip of blacktop, there's a cafe standing by the road, and every once in a while, a car pulls into that cafe, and someone runs in there for breakfast food, and the people working in the fields nearby say, "Damn, he's getting breakfast." Well,
oh God, the game was always on the radio. But God. All right, we're going to wrap it up for real now. I hope everyone has a good weekend. As always, fuck capitalism. Go home.
I wonder if this Goldbelly stuff works, though.
You should try it. You should try it and let me know, because you are... I was just telling someone this. I was like, Rob is someone who understands the finer things in life. And I feel like you have to be our guinea pig for Goldbelly.
The finest low-rent things. That's the thing.
That is the thing, like, right? Yes, yes. I'm not coming to you for caviar recommendations.
No.
That's not who you are.
But like... Hey, it's 3 a.m. Where are we going to get breakfast? Though actually, I would trust you more with that because you're a night owl.
I'm a night owl, yeah. Well, and now, the problem is now the answer is all of my places have closed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah. You can do this by region, huh?
Huh.
That's what's interesting.
Yeah.
So I can click on the Northeast and probably find you things that I love that way.
So I'm looking at, like, the thing that I'm thinking about is, like, I can't get a decent Philly cheesesteak sandwich up here.
Right.
And also, it'd be a really good test of the service because, like, in my head, there's no way you can get a cheesesteak shipped to me here in Northern Mass, and like that's going to be a good experience.
Damn,
but
what if the Farah on here? You should get this. You should try to get this to Farah and see if that's any good.
Yeah,
I'm looking at this place now.
How does this work? How does this work?
I don't know.
I suspect it's you pay a lot.
The other thing is you could go right to certain places, right? Like the famous sub shop in Atlantic City, which is where my stepdad works, is the White House sub shop. The only White House that I have respect for, which is like a fantastic Jersey, like sub sandwich place. And they also they just do a bunch of different stuff, and you can straight up just order from forever away, like across the country, and get a White House sub. So
But is it
great meat,
any
fantastic. Good? Oh wait, actually, they are on Goldbelly. That system is through Goldbelly.
No shit.
Wow, holy shit. Yeah, you need to order a sub that my stepdad made you.
Yes.
That's just a Kato. I should have put that on the big one. 1 second.
How does
Please. They're expensive, is what I was. Also, they seem to be sold out currently. I don't know how often they.
I'm not even talking about expense. I'm talking about literally like how does that travel?
It has to be like dry ice, right? It has to be like
dry ice.
And this is cold subs, so like whatever. That's not.
Yeah, I mean maybe the bread is a little salty.
That's got to be separate, right?
A cheesesteak has to be.
Right.
Like, what do they do though?
Like you can order pizza here. I was like, how the fuck is a pizza gonna get across the fucking country?
They have to have there has to be a description.
Pizza's a solved problem. Like you flat pack it, you do delicate shipping, and then you do dry ice. Like you just reheat it.
You reheat it. This is a reheat situation, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't arrive warm. You're giving it ready to be heated easily.
No, it can't. There's no way. There's no way.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Like Iron Man 1, where your friend like shows up from New York on the private jet, and it's like, I just flew this here for you.
I bet that service also exists, but it's not a website.
Right.
Or maybe there's a website front, but that website just has a phone number on it you have to call, then you
need to drop some recommendations in here,
and we're gonna go through.
I will experiment.
I think this is a good experiment. I'll start looking through my regions, the regions that I know, and finding stuff.
Prince Street Pizza, son of a bitch.
Ooh, okay. Now we're fucking talking. All right, I'm gonna end this and then I'll.
Okay, but no. Holy shit!
What's up? What'd you find?
2 Prince Street pizzas, the whole pies.
Yeah.
$125.
Yikes.
Though I'm actually, now that I think of it, the full pie, I think that might not be that might not be that insanely different from what they charge.
You can get a Pat's Philly cheesesteak here, and that's probably if you went with Pat's, you're fine. Like there's some debate obviously over what the best Philly cheesesteak is, but the Pat's King of Steaks is
well, I'm gonna have
fine,
to. I just try it. To get rolls delivered up here because that's the other thing is like Massachusetts.
You could make your own.
Do the roll.
Right, you could do your own cheesesteak for sure.
Yeah.
But the question there very much is, can you do that without a good roll? And the answer is no. You need a good roll.
Yeah. Well, it's 2 PM. I think we nailed it.
Yeah. That's a podcast.
Time to eat.
Yeah.
Can't wait to put this on my time code. Where it's like, look, it was an hour of breakfast talk.
It was. It was the thing. It was. People love it. This is. People are gonna love this podcast. That's what I think, anyway.
100%.
All right. If you have recommendations for local food that we can order on the internet, you let us know. All right. I'm gonna go eat lunch. Bye.
Later, dudes.
Bye. Oh, my button broke. I can't goose anymore.
Thank God.
I love that they just retconned, like, okay, so the first game, fake Holland was invaded by this empire. Cool, gotcha. Next game that all of you are going to play, fake Holland is leading an invasion of fake Soviet Union. And like teeny little Holland, it can do Barbarossa. Don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm. They're the best at it.
Yeah.
Mm. Those games.
Look at these little Dutch nerds breach the Siegval line.
You were there too. All right. What's good, internet? It's Friday, August.
Wait, whoa.
We didn't clap.
Whoa.
Yeah, we didn't clap. That's where my brain is today.
Whoa.
Get a lot
Study
on my
the
mind.
past if you would define the future.
Damn, Confucius has my ass. Comma Austin, go to time.is. That's what he said. God. 55. I need that extra time today. All right.
I thought you were just going to make us do it during the pod, just like make it a segment.
Oh, that would have been fun. That would be good. An embedded clap.
Yeah.
You know? That's good. All right. I'm very excited to get to these emails at the end of the podcast. We should get there quick. All right.